later. But let's start with this war powers resolution. There is and this is something that I think honestly, like I feel like it could study for a year and a half and still not be fully clear on all this sort of like loopholes that are here. But the broad strokes are that we had the War Powers Act of 1973, which is supposed to sort of reiterate that the President of the United States go to Congress and get within X amount of days, 30 days, in the event of like any type of anything that could be construed as war. Now, war now has become, because of technology, has become, sort of like flattened and has changed, theoretically, right? Like it's not, and those technicalities as to what constitutes war. Like, is it war if the CIA assassinates somebody? Is it, right. Even if it's with a missile? If they do it with a drone, it's not war. It's something else. Right. And but the War Powers Act says you have to come back to Congress, and there are specific resolutions that are passed in that reflect upon that. Basically, because you've had things like the AUMF, which sort of like carves out stuff from the War Powers Act. There were competing bills, one by Ilhan Omar and Barbara Lee, that was, I guess, the cousin of which was in the Senate under Tim Kaine. And then there was one, and that was about getting permission from Congress. And then there was one from Ro Khanna and Bernie Sanders in the House and the Senate, respectively, about cutting funding off for anything that had to deal with Iran. And Nancy Pelosi didn't like either one of those, and so had a third entrance into it by Elisa Slotkin, who is from Michigan, former CIA analyst and Defense Department official. And hers gives some wiggle room. So from a progressive standpoint, this is a first step. But it's a good first step, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, it's non-binding. So it's really a statement of them trying to reassert their powers. The biggest problem, though, Sam, is, as you outlined, with our drone program, with the CIA taking the lead on so many things, which gives them some wiggle room. The problem is there has been this expansion of power that the Congress has allowed. And you've talked about this ad nauseum. I mean, this is not just a problem with Donald Trump. This was a problem underneath Barack Obama. And of course, famously, really a tremendous problem underneath George W. Bush. But both parties have been kind of complicit in seeing the powers of the presidency expand without the Congress actually asserting any of their authority. And so, this is, honestly, I don't want to downplay it. It is a first step. I was surprised to see Matt Gaetz actually support it. I was surprised to see any Republican support it. I think Justin Amash, he doesn't really consider himself a Republican anymore, so I could see him voting for it. But I was really surprised at that vote in particular because of how much he's always been in lockstep with the president. And so he's catching some backlash for that. But it just says that at least they're trying. Should we give them credit for trying? I guess.
Well, yeah. And I guess, some of the failure, I think, just comes from, I don't know, the media. I mean, even folks like us. I mean, do we have that Gaetz video? All right, let's play this Matt Gaetz video. Now, Matt Gaetz is a disingenuous, cretin, right-wing. I mean, there's nothing I can say that will articulate how despicable I think this guy is. And I have actually a decent amount of friends in Pensacola, Florida. That's where we do Ring of Fire out of. And he represents that district, and I've talked to different people there, and the guy's a loon. That area of the country is also has its own share of problems, I think, in terms of like ideology. But if we had a Fox News, let's say, when Donald Trump gets up last night, like he did in Ohio, and talks about, the Democrats want me to, go and talk to, I'm going to kill this guy, and then I got to go tell the Democrats. The Democrats right now would be talking about, this is a bipartisan. Listen to Matt Gaetz here.
Come on. Yeah.
I take a backseat to no member of this body when it comes to defending the president. This resolution offers no criticism of the president, no critique. It doesn't criticize the president's attack on Soleimani. Matter of fact, this resolution doesn't even say Soleimani's name in it. Yet it does articulate our very robust basis for self-defense, at times even preemptory self-defense to defend our troops. And it also articulates our non-delegable duty as members of the United States Congress to speak to matters of war and peace. I represent more troops than any other member of this body. I buried one of them earlier today at Arlington. And that sergeant died a patriot and a hero. If the members of our armed services have the courage to go and fight and die in these wars, as Congress, we ought to have the courage to vote for them or against them. And I think it's ludicrous to suggest that we are impairing the troops from doing their job by not doing our job articulated in the Constitution to speak to these matters of war and peace. I support the president. Killing Soleimani was the right decision, but engaging in another forever war in the Middle East would be the wrong decision, and that's why I'm voting for this resolution.
All right. So look, now I think like what he was articulating was true, and I think it shows the sort of the problems with this version of this war powers resolution. But like, you know, we'll take some baby steps here to constrain at least, you know, to constrain the president. Never mind Donald Trump, but just the presidency.
Right.
But a decent political operation would be making hay out of the fact. And a press would immediately be going to Donald Trump right now and saying, hey, Matt Gaetz, Mike Lee, Rand Paul. I mean, these people are all disingenuous as far as I'm concerned. And if there was if they weren't completely boxed in, they would be doing something totally different. But they are. And so it should be exploited by society.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's actually a good point. And you mentioned it's also a problem with media. Like that slipped right by me. Like the whole narrative right now should be a bipartisan support for this bill, the passage of this bill. And but really, I think you also hit the nail on the head. It's also incumbent upon the Democratic leadership. Like this, I have not heard anyone say that. So shame on us, because it would be the number one way that we could pressure the president. Now, I don't think he's going to succumb to that pressure, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't, operate at the top of our political game. Right. So I definitely believe that. And honestly, like, it's hard for me to listen to that clip and not, I don't believe almost anything that Matt Gaetz says.
Agreed.
But I really honestly felt him on that clip, and he's going to pay a political price for it. I guess he is boxed in because of how many people he represents, but it's not going well for him today. We'll see how it plays out and if the president takes him to task for it.
The president might, but I think like in terms of his own district, he had to do that, I think.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the idea that Joe Lieberman can go on, not just, the media in general, but MSNBC, and it be ostensibly brought on there because he's a Democrat who thinks that the Democrats are going wayward. Like, first off, I would like to remind everyone that Joe Lieberman left.
Yes.
Not left office, not as a Democrat, but as a Connecticut for Liebermanite, which I think was the name of his party that he ran on. And so but that is his existence. And his longtime support for a war with Iran is ignored. And he's trotted out as if there is some type of like bipartisan consensus that may agree with the president. But you have, never mind Lee, Rand Paul and Matt Gaetz, but, Justin Amash, who was kicked out of the Republican Party for having this sort of heterodoxy. I don't know. I mean, I think obviously more needs to be done on this, but give me your sense now of, and I anticipate there's going to be more retaliation from Iran, but just not in as public and an attributable way. And we're going to be back to where we were, although there's like some narrative that like we have finally constrained. Tom Cotton's out there. We finally, Iran is finally afraid of us again. This is how twisted. This is how twisted this stuff is, because the reason why they want a nuclear weapon to the extent that they want one, was always because they're afraid of us.
Right.
Like,
right.
and we had made a deal with them enough to say, like, you don't need to have that level of fear. And it was the pulling out of the deal that made them afraid of us, not the killing of one of their generals.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, the killing of the general was like the most recent catalyst, and it really galvanized. Like, I think Donald Trump handed them something that even the moderates in Iran could not avoid. But to your point, though, anyone who's spinning this as a victory for Donald Trump is at the height of madness. And it's almost unthinkable that they could spin it this way, because Iran is boldened. They really played the president. I mean, they made their move and the president backed down. I'm grateful. So we have to be careful here. I'm extremely grateful that the president backed down. I know he created the mess, and I don't want to give him credit for doing the right thing out of the wrong decision in the first place. But this week could have played out totally different. And so when I say I'm grateful, it's really because even though Iran kind of made their move, they were emboldened, they did their thing, and the president backed down. I don't want to make anyone think that's a signal that we should have responded and retaliated again. No. Everything played out this week the best way it could in this terrible timeline that we're living in. That being said, anyone who's trying to tell you that this was a victory for Donald Trump, they're really not reading the signals. I hope that this is the end of it. We need for this to be the end of it. But Iran was not weaker on the international stage, even if for the moral case, right? The moral case. Everyone on the international stage, we know Donald Trump is a moron, but we see this week that Iran came out as the rational actors, the one with a measured hand, the one that had a proportionate response, the people who were responsible not to kill anyone on that base. We'll leave the conversation about the airline off the table for a few seconds. And, they came off looking like the reasonable, rational actor in this conversation. And Donald Trump came off like a slurring buffoon. And so if nothing else, on the moral case, they came out looking great on the international stage. We'll see how everything else plays out.
Right, I think that's true, and we've talked about earlier the downing of the Ukrainian airline, and I mean it's a horror show. 190 lives, and it's the stuff like this is bound to happen in the context of these type of
Exactly.
like sort of war or low level war, whatever you want to call it. We need to highlight this though, because I mean, frankly, and we'll pivot to impeachment in a second here. But I don't think that the line between, and the idea that we as a country are not completely on board with the idea that this was all about impeachment is absurd, at least for Donald Trump. Now, I do think that there has been a longstanding desire by Mike Pompeo and maybe Mike Pence, and Milley apparently is surprising everybody with his ability to go along with just about any bat crap crazy stuff that exists. But this story in the Wall Street Journal came out last night. I don't know if you had a chance to see this. It talks about Trump's new national security team making fast work of an Iran strike. And apparently this new team was cohesive. This new team being Secretary of Defense Mark Esper, the Raytheon executive, the new Joint of Chiefs Staff Mark Milley, who people are like, man, yeah, he's great. We can't believe it. He's not giving the president any pushback whatsoever. New National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien. I don't know much about him, but Mike Pompeo is a longtime lunatic. And so this piece, there's two things that stuck out for me in this piece. Lindsey Graham, Trump confidant who played golf with him when he was considering the strike, said the new advisors, quote, understand the president. They have chemistry amongst themselves. General Milley is the biggest surprise. He's much more willing to take a risk to achieve a goal. Now, I don't know what the goal was.
Right.
But then there was this. This is stunning. The way the strike was handled has drawn scrutiny from Democrats and some Republicans. Critics say the decision was hasty, considering the risk of all-out war. It was obviously incredibly hasty. They also question whether the intelligence that prompted the action was as clear-cut and alarming as the White House has said. Now, the way this is written, remember, folks, this is a Rupert Murdoch paper. The way this is written is, the sort of begrudging. People have walked out of these hearings saying, these intelligence assessments saying, like, there's nothing. Like, this is sophomoric. This is like high school crap. And see the move as doing little to further U.S. interest in the region. Of course, there's been no interest. So why do it? Why did Donald Trump, who I'm quite convinced, knows that a war with Iran is bad for him politically? Why did he do it? Mr. Trump, after the strike, told associates he was under pressure to deal with General Soleimani from GOP senators he views as important supporters in his coming impeachment trial in the Senate. This according to associates. Now, for people who don't read the news in the way that you and I read the news, the idea that Lindsey Graham, 3 graphs ahead of that statement, is placed as playing golf in the days before Soleimani is killed and is saying he's happy with all the players involved and everybody's on the same page, suggests to me that Lindsey Graham, and I'm sure there are others, Tom Cotton is mentioned also in that same graph. He was looking for for Lindsey Graham to go in and quash impeachment and this was the price that he was going to pay, almost getting us into war. This is effed up. And the idea that hopefully this is going to get more attention. This came out last night, so maybe it'll get more attention. I don't know. But this is nuts. This is nutso territory.
Yeah, Sam, I hope it gets more attention. I don't think that it will because this is our normal. I hated that phrase when everything started off. We can't let this be the new normal. But by us saying that, it kind of became the new normal. What you just read off would otherwise grind an entire administration to a complete halt. And you're bringing it up on your independent media show. And I'm not sure. I'll have to check. I don't know who covered it on mainstream media. Because this is just where we are now. To the substance of what you're saying, Lindsey Graham, along with I honestly had to do my best not to drag John McCain up from the grave and be grateful that he was not alive because they have this bloodlust to go to war with Iran under any circumstance. Thank goodness John Bolton was out of the administration, but this even had the fingerprints of John Bolton on it. There is a concerted plan and effort to undermine the regime there in Iran. I forgot the name of the plan, the New American Century that they've been planning.
Project for New American Century, yes.
They've been working on this for decades.
Yep.
And so they have not let that go. And in Donald Trump, they found the perfect person to implement their strategy, just like they said. They needed someone who could just sign off on it with enough working digits to sign off on their agenda. And they found him. They got him in a corner. Now, listen, I think Donald Trump, I'm not going to make Donald Trump the victim here, right? He's obviously operating in his own best political interest. At least he thought he was. And I don't think that he has enough working digits to do the calculus to see that this was going to be the best outcome. The best outcome was Iran retaliated and he has to back down. I don't think he played this all the way through. But at the same time, this faction has been waiting. I mean, Michael Flynn. The second week in office, the first week in office came out and put Iran on notice. So, I mean, there's a big machine that has been trying to go to war with Iran for a very long time, and he's surrounded by them.
Yeah, I agree totally. And, in another era.
Isn't Michael Bolton a singer?
Michael Bolton, right.
Yeah.
In another era, this revelation in the Wall Street Journal would be grounds for an impeachment.
Yes.
I mean, you're not supposed to come close to starting another massive regional war because you need Lindsey Graham to be really, really deliver a lot of rhetoric about why you shouldn't be impeached. I mean, that's what it comes down to. He's not even looking for a vote because Lindsey Graham can't afford to do anything but to vote to clear the president. But he just wants him in there to work hard to exonerate me. That's what's going on here.
Yeah, and the number of lives that are attached to that reckless and that very cavalier decision really just speaks to I don't know what type of character you actually have to be willing to put the number of we'd already dehumanized anyone who's not from the West, right? We don't really care as Americans about Iraqis or Iranians, right? But just in context of American lives, they're willing to risk just for the smallest political advantage. We've been saying it for a while. The Republican Party is a death cult, but most certainly the neoconservative branch of the Republican Party is most certainly a death cult that would have led to the lives of Americans dying and probably countless hundreds of thousands of Iranians dying. And not only that, but being in the Middle East and that region in perpetuity, because there's no coming back from that.
Well, one of the things I was on MSNBC this week, right when we were right as the Iranians were launching these missiles into this, the deserted part of our bases, apparently. And Steve Schmidt was on there, and I talked about this, earlier in the week at length. But this idea that we sit back as people and just watch, like these leaders do this stuff. Like it's just like we're watching Game of Thrones, right? Like we're just one of the people who live down below who are going to get fried by the flying dragons when they breathe fire. But that's the only time that we actually get any airtime, essentially, in the show. The rest of the time, the whole story is about these, this Game of Thrones that's happening, and we have no ability to in any way influence it. Like, when I read stuff like this, where some reporter apparently has talked to somebody is willing to admit that he did this because of he wanted Lindsey Graham to be stronger in the impeachment. I mean, Nancy Pelosi should get out there today and say, I'm not sending articles of impeachment to the Senate until someone explains to me what is going on here. Who is the president talking about? Which Republican senators are the ones who are telling him, you got to attack Iran if you want me to defend you in the Senate? Like, that's not the way this is supposed to work. Right. She should be out there holding up the Wall Street Journal and saying, this is the Wall Street Journal. Who are these people? And, who told this to the reporters, and what senators are they talking about, and how does the president respond to this? And I'm not sending anything over there until we investigate this. And the House should right now be subpoenaing John Bolton and get him in there and have his lawyers explain, like, oh, well, we'll go to a Senate subpoena, but we won't go to a House one. Like, what the? Like, this is just like madness. And to have other Democrats coming out and pressuring Pelosi to send this stuff, I want to see Mitch McConnell pass a bill that says we're just going to dismiss articles of impeachment without even seeing them. Go ahead and just bring up new ones. The idea that they could send these articles of impeachment, and there's no reason why the Democrats couldn't send further ones in the future. So it doesn't matter what Mitch McConnell does in the Senate about these things. I mean, this is just ridiculous to me.
I think I don't want to give anyone the benefit of the doubt in this case, but I think that we are so inundated. Okay, here's what I'm trying to say. The source did their part. The journalists did their part. You're doing your part by bringing this to the attention of people. Who's not doing their part is whoever surrounding Pelosi at this point. And of course, Pelosi's smooth enough to make her own decisions. But if everyone is not clicking and doing their parts in this, then that doesn't happen. And I'm not trying to give Pelosi an excuse, but there's just so many things that don't happen unless everyone does their part. Someone around Pelosi has to push her to do exactly that, because you're right. This story is big enough. And yet it's the third one that you and I have talked about. That's just kind of the world that we're in. And if we don't push through this, right? If we don't all do our part, like I actually can make a phone call and send some text messages and to do our part to make sure that this operates the way it has to operate and that the line is drawn. To everything that you're saying about the Senate and the impeachment and everything else, I don't disagree with what Pelosi is doing at this point. Like, there is really no reason for her to send those articles over until the Senate comes on the record, because they've gone on the record publicly saying that this is just a game to them, that what their entire plans are. So she's making the right move. And I think people are getting a little skittish. They're a little afraid that the political impact is going to die down. But there's so many things that are happening in between then and now, right? There's so many other things. Iran just happened. This story just happened. There are plenty of places where the pressure can be applied again. There's really no reason to send it over to give Donald Trump a slam dunk victory.
And I understand that Nancy Pelosi is driving this thing, but there is another person who is ostensibly the leader of the Democrats in this country, right? There are two official, obviously people on the presidential campaign, I understand why they aren't necessarily caught up on this stuff, but there's two big people who have official leadership positions in the Democratic Party. And one of them is in the Senate. And ostensibly, it is one of his colleagues or multiple of his colleagues who are encouraging Donald Trump to go attack Iran. And in response, what they'll do is they will be boisterous in the event the articles of impeachment hit the Senate. And maybe Chuck Schumer should put down his to stop investigating the size of seatbelts on airliners or whatever, small piddling things that he's working on, and should get up and be a leader for the country, seeing as how he is in charge of the Democratic caucus in the U.S. Senate. Right? Where is Chuck Schumer? Is he on vacation? Where is he vacationing? Is he still what is he showing up at work? Does he not have a staff? Is his staff not doing anything? Does he need to borrow an intern or something? Do we have somebody in the office who can maybe spare some time for Chuck Schumer so they can do a little bit of research and do something?
Bro, I'm laughing so hard because I honestly forgot about Chuck Schumer. He's there. He's the second most powerful Democrat in the country right now in terms of being in elected office. And you're right. Like, where the hell is he on this? So it shouldn't even all fall to. That's what I mean when I say we all have to do our part, and we have some feckless people in positions, because you would completely forget that Chuck Schumer is even a thing.
Is there, honestly, if someone was to call up and say, look, I work in the Senate Hart building or whatever building Chuck Schumer has his office in, and says, the weird thing is they're doing some construction in his building and he hasn't been able to get in there for 3 months. Or he's been locked inside it and he hasn't been able to get out for 3 months. I would say, okay, well, that explains it. Because, I get news for you. Coming from New York, I happen to know Chuck Schumer can find a camera. He's quite good at that when he wants to. And so it's pretty stunning that he's just, completely sidelined on this whole thing. Chuck Schumer should be asking,
responsibility for sure, man.
Who in the Senate is telling the president to attack Iran and exchanging essentially. Oh, wait a second. I'm sorry. I just got to here's some breaking news. Wait a second. Yeah, here it is. Okay. He in late October, he proposed a $454 billion plan over 10 years to help shift the United States away from gasoline-powered vehicles by offering cash vouchers to help Americans buy cleaner vehicles. That's great. That's good. It's good that he put out that plan because, of course, there's nothing else going on right now. If you're going to put out, talk about putting out the most narrowly tailored symbolic legislation. I get why some people get cynical about symbolic legislation, but when you're talking about big, broad commitments that you want to make and hold Democrats to when they get power, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
45 billion a year to help shift the United States, by offering cash vouchers. fine, we can subsidize. How about we just subsidize the electric vehicle business instead of having to like do it through the market as if we have like the ACA is the template for all the stuff that we do. But the idea that this guy's spending time on this, how about spending time? We don't even have time to cover all the stuff that we need to on a 3-hour show every day. And he finds time to come up with a bill that is going to be, cobwebbed, and it's just going to something that he can put on his website. I mean, give me a freaking break.
Sam, you're in rare form today, man. I am enjoying it.
I'm sorry.
You're right.
Nuts.
Your righteous indignation is right, but man, that was a great segment. I'm glad to be a part of that one.
Well, I'm glad you're here too.